Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the time that an NHL team tried to create a two-headed monster in between the pipes. But before we start talking about that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So over the course of the league's history, you probably are aware of the fact that we've seen some jaw-dropping talent back then as well as today. And I would say that goalies are a very important position out of all this. In fact, I would say that a lot of people think if you have a good goalie, you have a great chance of making a deep run in the playoffs and maybe even winning the championship. However, what happens when you have a team that tries to get two really good big-name goalies with their aspirations being to hoist Lord Stanley? And how crazy do things get? Well, to talk about that, we have to go back to the 2016-17 season, and at this point, it's February of 2017, and the Los Angeles Kings are a side looking to make the playoffs. They are currently outside of the playoff spot, though, 64 points in 61 games played, and really are a mainstay of the playoffs around this time. So for them to be out of it, it is not ideal. They had made it 6 out of the prior 7 seasons, and they had been able to go on to the Western Conference Final on 3 occasions, hoisting Lord Stanley twice, and one of those occasions was just 3 seasons prior to this. So winning in 2012 and 2014, this LA side definitely had hopes of winning the 3rd championship and solidifying themselves as an NHL dynasty. So at this point, you have a guy named Jonathan Quick that I'm sure you're all well aware of up to this point. And Quick was coming off of 2 very big years in terms of wins. The 2 seasons prior, he had a combined 76 wins, which is crazy. And in the 2015-16 season, he actually had 40 wins, and he was seen as the mainstay in net, hoping to be able to go on another run in the playoffs like he had been able to do, and again, get this team that 3rd championship. However, the problem was at this time, he ended up getting hurt really early in the season. It would miss a substantial amount of time. They tried to do what they wanted to do, but they would pull the trigger on a relatively big trade, getting Ben Bishop from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Why was that a big deal? Well, Bishop was a very good goalie at this time, finishing top 3 in Vezina voting 2 out of the past 3 seasons prior to this, and helping the Tampa Bay Lightning make it to the Stanley Cup Final in 2015. He obviously was a guy they probably would have liked to keep at the time. However, due to cap issues, due to the fact that the expansion draft was coming, Bishop's free agency status, as well as Andrei Vasilevsky being young and promising, they kind of end up moving him into LA. And this is where things get really interesting, because now, talking back to that two-headed monster thing, you have a guy in Jonathan Quick that's coming off of a 41 season, and Bishop, a goalie that very well could have been a Vezina winner around this time, on the same team as the Kings had won 2 championships relatively close to this period that the trade was made. And let me tell you, around this time too, the talk on social media was crazy. A lot of people talking about how this had the potential to be a very, very good duo, making the Kings a major dark horse if they were able to make the playoffs. And it was just really a fun period of time to be a fan of the league. Even if you weren't really a Kings fan, just to see how things gelled. The problem is, though, the Kings end up not even making the playoffs after they make this trade, as they go 9-8-4 and sit 8 points out of a playoff spot by the end of the season. A lot of talk was made about why Bishop was traded for so late in the year, and whether that could have had an impact, and I totally get that. But at the same time, too, it was very unfortunate that this side couldn't come together with a hot run and maybe make it to the playoffs. Now we get to talk a little bit about how Jonathan Quick did and Ben Bishop did during this run. So Quick played 15 games and went 7-5-2 and had a .912 save percentage, and Bishop only ended up playing 7 games for the team and finished with a record of 2-3-2, had a save percentage of 900 and a goals against average of 2.49. Had some games that he won where there wasn't a lot of shots against, kind of a staple for this Kings team at times, and there was 2 or 3 games where things didn't go particularly well. I think his last game as a King wasn't great from what I recall, but either way, looking at 2 goalies that you're hoping could come together and make something magical happen here, but the reality is, with a short amount of time, they just weren't able to get anything going. So what was the aftermath out of all this? Well, Bishop ends up getting traded to Dallas, where he signs a long-term extension, and the Kings just really were not able to keep him because of the fact that they had money to spend elsewhere. making the late trade all the more curious as to why this all happened, and very unfortunate for Kings fans hoping to be that next NHL dynasty, because at this time, a rival for them, the Chicago Blackhawks, had won in 2010, 13, and 15. These two teams did not like each other. These two teams had met in the Western Conference Final multiple times, and the Kings were hoping to, again, be that next NHL dynasty. They would have won in 2012, 2014, and then potentially in 2017. The West around this time really did feel like they owned the NHL, thanks in part because Chicago and LA were 5-time Stanley Cup champions from 2010 through 2015. The only East team to win were the 2011 Boston Bruins when they beat the Vancouver Canucks in 7 games. So all in all, this wasn't what the Kings were really hoping for. And it just goes to show, despite the fact that you could see two big-name players, especially two big-name goalies, be brought in, or just have one goalie brought in and see how it could work on the roster, it doesn't always necessarily work out for the best. Now, was it some of the most fun and hypothetical, interesting things from this era? I would say probably yes, but at the end of the day, the Kings haven't won a Stanley Cup since then, and Quick isn't even on the team anymore. So anyway, what are your thoughts out of all this? At this time, did you think that the Kings were going to be able to be the dark horse? They were going to be able to maybe even win the championship? Or did you actually see that they weren't going to make the playoffs? So let me know all that down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. Eagle of Hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.